They say true evil doesn't announce itself with fanfare or fury. It whispers, it adapts, it hides in plain sight. And in the 1970s and early 1980s, it whispered through the life of a man who became one of North America's most elusive predators, William Dean Christensen. The newspapers in Pennsylvania and Quebec called him the American Jack the Ripper, though that name never quite stuck in public memory. Investigators across 2 countries suspected him of killing more than 24 people, maybe more, but the final count remains unknown even today. He moved like smoke through cities and identities, changing his name as easily as most people change their clothes. Jeffrey Schrader, Richard Owen, William Allen. Each alias brought him time, distance, and victims. But long before he became a phantom, slipping through prisons and international borders, before detectives spent years chasing shadows, William Dean Christensen was just a boy growing up in a quiet Maryland suburb. Bright, angry, and already showing cracks that no one around him could quite interpret. Before we go deeper into this chilling true story, subscribe if you love real crime documentaries and investigative deep dives, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Now, let's begin. September 24th, 1945. Bethesda, Maryland. A town of tree-lined streets, white picket fences, and the kind of post-war optimism that defined suburban America. William Dean Christensen was born into what looked like stability. His father, David Christensen, worked as an Army intelligence officer, a man of discipline, secrets, and rigid expectations. His mother, Genevieve, was a devout Catholic, fiercely protective of her only child, determined to raise him according to the moral clarity she found in scripture and routine. On paper, it was the model American family. But inside that household, something was already beginning to fracture. Neighbors who lived on the same block would later tell reporters they remembered William as a boy who seemed normal most of the time, polite when spoken to, quiet during church services, the kind of kid who blended in. But there were moments, brief flashes, when something else showed through. He had a temper that erupted without warning. A lost board game could turn into a screaming fit. A misplaced toy could lead to broken dishes. Teachers at his elementary school noted in reports that he was academically gifted, quick with numbers and reading comprehension, but emotionally volatile. One instructor wrote that William could solve a complex math problem on the chalkboard one moment and throw his pencil across the room the next, his face flushed with rage over a perceived slight that no one else had noticed. The other children picked up on this instability. They gave him a nickname early on, Turtles. It was meant to mock his quietness, the way he withdrew into himself when things were calm. But as William grew older, as his body filled out and his fists grew harder, that nickname evolved. By middle school, they called him Mad Dog. The reason was simple. When William snapped, he didn't just lash out. He didn't stop until someone bled. There's a documented incident from 6th grade where he slammed another boy's head against a wooden desk, repeatedly over a pencil he believed had been stolen from him. The pencil was later found in William's own bag. The other child needed stitches. William showed no remorse. When the principal asked him why he'd done it, he shrugged and said the boy had it coming. That phrase, "had it coming," would appear again and again in police reports decades later, a verbal tick that revealed how Christensen saw the world. In his mind, violence was always justified. Someone always deserved it. But here's the unsettling part. Nothing in his official records suggested he would become a killer. There were no documented incidents of animal cruelty, no fires set, no clear warning signs that fit the classic triad behaviorists look for in developing psychopaths. He graduated from high school in 1963 without major disciplinary action. He wasn't popular, but he wasn't isolated either. He dated. He held part-time jobs. In 1966, at age 21, he married a young woman named Patricia. They had 2 children within 3 years. To his co-workers at a local auto repair shop, he seemed like just another guy trying to build a stable life in a rapidly changing America. But behind closed doors, the marriage was disintegrating. Patricia would later tell police that William's temper ruled their home. Arguments escalated into physical violence. She described living in a state of constant vigilance, never knowing what might set him off. A dinner cooked wrong, a bill paid late, a glance he interpreted as disrespect. She called the police multiple times, but this was the late 1960s, an era when domestic violence was often dismissed as a private family matter. Officers would arrive, see no visible injuries, and leave. The system wasn't built to intervene, and so Patricia stayed, trapped between fear and the social stigma of divorce, until one night in early 1969, when William put his hands around her throat and told her he could make her disappear if he wanted to. She believed him. Within weeks, she filed for divorce, took the children and moved across state lines. She never spoke to him again.